Hi, welcome. My name is Matthew Luck. I, my goal here with this series, and hopefully this will end up being a series, is to go through the process of drawing hands, specifically hands in this series. I would like to get more into drawing or doing more videos where I draw different things and videos where I do more animation as well. Um, to introduce myself, my name is Matthew Luck. I used to be an animator. I worked in the animation industry for about 8 years on some big projects, including as a lead special effects animator on a feature film. Um, However, one of the weaknesses of mine that I've always had is I've never been particularly strong in doing drawing people, doing animation of humans, of characters. Um, I've never had the strongest grasp on anatomy. You're seeing here at the moment where I'm quickly going through a session where I'm drawing some hands, um, and there are a lot of issues in these hands. Part of this series is that I'm going to go through in each one. Uh, this has turned out to be longer than I thought it would be. In each one, I'm going to go through, draw about 5 to 10 hands, um, and then after I do those initial drawings, which are timed, I'm doing them each in about 5 minutes when I remember to set the timer. Um, After I do those initial drawings, I'm going to come through and I'm going to spend a little bit more time going over each of the drawings, trying to see where I messed up, trying to see what I could do to make it a better drawing, um, identify the areas where I'm weak, and address them. Um, my goal in this series is to do 1,000 of these hands. Um, Will I reach that goal of 1,000 hands? Probably not recorded. Probably not uh, however many episodes that would be. Um, was that 200? Um, but the more I do, the better I'll get. Analysis of my own drawings is something I've never been particularly good about doing, and part of my goal here with this series is to put myself into the situation where I'm forced to go through and do that thinking, see what I can improve, try to push myself through the errors and the issues that I had uh, earlier in my life, the things that made it hard for me to step outside of the bounds that I put myself in animation. Um, will I ever go back and work in animation? I don't know. But if I don't, I'm perfectly happy in learning uh, some skills again to hopefully get myself back there. Um, the other thing I want to learn how to do is make videos and do a little bit of educational stuff. Probably starting out with a series that is me doing things that I don't know how to do. You're going to see with this hand specifically, I botch it so many times, but I think that the fix that I do later is better. Um, but yeah, hopefully in time, I will improve at both making videos. I know that there's probably a lot of awkward pauses here. Um, Also, some not so impressive drawing going on at the moment. Bear with me. Hopefully, here in a few months, few years, as long as I can keep it up and keep practicing, maybe I'll actually figure out what I'm doing. The other thing I also don't know how to do is how to fill dead air, since I know that this ends in about 15 more seconds, 20 more seconds. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. We're going to go to the live drawing here in just a second, and I'll see you there. Okay, and here's the live portion. We're going to go back over my drawings that I did before, see if I can't do a slightly better job, improve them, look at what's there, kind of analyze them a little bit, and try and fix them. So just lowering the opacity on all these a little bit. Now the first thing that I noticed that I mentioned before, first of all, is I think that my brush size is way too big. A lot of these ended up super blocky. Part of the issue I was having with this drawing was that the perspective on it just wasn't right. This kind of shape coming in here for the fingers is what I was more looking for. And it kind of got flattened before. You can see where I just lost the points of the fingers there. I didn't mind how this turned out up here in the earlier drawing. If I was just doing a gesture drawing, I'd be happy with that, and that's kind of what this is. Only spent about 5 minutes per each of these. The first thing I noticed is that the index finger here is way too long. The middle finger and the ring finger is too short. I'm going to add a couple of guides for myself. Where to still capture the same kind of pose where the fingers are coming up and out. I'm going to run into those same issues. I need to turn down this opacity a little bit more. There we go. The same issues where I need to keep this perspective on these individual things. Like I still want this finger to come out and come down like that. I still want this one to come out and then come down again. This one again. Try and get kind of this sweeping up of the fingers and then back down, sweeping up the fingers and then back down. But keeping them in the actual lengths that they should be. The middle finger should be longer than the index finger. The index finger should be about the same length as the ring finger. Before I tried using cylinders, and I've used cylinders before, they work okay. Boxes for me can sometimes be a little bit easier since they already have the built-in perspective to them as you draw. I'm also trying not to spend as much time. You can already see that I'm completely ignoring these guides that I put in here. They are completely out of perspective as well. Need to work on, that's definitely one of the things I need to work on is figuring out what I need to do to make sure that these items stay in the right perspective with the same, or with the correct lengths. It's probably what I'll study tonight after I finish this first go. Try and get a little bit of motion into those fingers. They're fleshy on the bottom, so kind of straight on the top, fleshy on the bottom. Do the same with this one. I want to get that same feeling where I had it up a bit. But actually make sure that it conforms to that correct length of the finger. Still comes in here, still connects. I can get my knuckles in there. They connect, get a little bit of the fleshy pad on the hand in there. Get this pinky finger. I try not to use the undo button too often. In the past, I've gotten super dependent on that undo button to the point where I'll be drawing on paper and I'll be pressing undo, 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 undo on like my notebook, even though there's no button there. You got to remember that there is that flesh between each of these fingers, something that I have a bad tendency to forget. Figure out how that comes up. They all kind of converge up at that point on the hand. Zoom in a bit on this. So I'm not going to spend longer than I spent on it the first time on this. I've actually already spent longer than I spent on the first time. Yeah, I'm going to try to only put about 5 minutes into each of these. But since the exercise is learning, and part of learning is figuring out what you did wrong and fixing it, I think that is a better hand. Turn this opacity back up. There's that. There's that. There's that. There's that. I definitely feel that structure a lot more in this one, even though it's not as... I put more shading into that one, obviously. And the shading didn't help anything. If the structure's not there, the shading isn't going to save the drawing. And if I'd taken an hour on this drawing and I shaded it perfectly, it would never fix the bad drawing. It would never fix this ugly finger that looks like something that's not a finger. It would never put these things back into perspective correctly. This, still not a great drawing, still not the best hand I've ever drawn, but it's a lot nicer than it was before. Yeah, so now I'll look at number 2. Now, I don't hate this drawing already. Again, part of the first thing I should look at here is get a little bit more structure into this. I used to always do my shape breakdowns. My professor at SCAD was very much into utilizing these. And then I got lazy and I stopped using them. So what's wrong with this drawing? For one, it's really flat. It almost is drawn in a way that makes it look like the pinky and the index finger are like up. There's like a dip in the middle, which is weird. That finger's super long. It's just, I don't like it. To fix how flat it is, instead of drawing it exactly like I drew it here, I'm going to actually push the pose slightly down so that there's a little bit of twist in the hand. Still not going to be able to really see the thumb, but get a little bit more of an actual pose here. I think that's the thing I hate the most about this pose. I'm going to come in here with the boxes again. I think that worked out well last time. Get each of these. Let's figure out where each one is. That one's going to be there. It's going to be there. Keep in mind that the flesh is down there. The shape that I'm trying to draw here, it's more of a wedge shape like that, with the actual arm coming up like that, and then the thumb is down here somewhere. Yeah, perfect. So when you're seeing this back shape, it's actually sticking out here. The flesh of the fingers is down in between each of these. I gotta figure out a way to draw it so that you can tell that from the back. And I'm not sure that I've solved that problem yet in my head. With this new twist, these fingers are gonna each have a slightly different perspective on them, which is fine. I just have to make sure that I follow along with that perspective as it changes through here. Get the length of each of these fingers as it follows all the way along. And again, it's not going to be the prettiest drawing on earth, but it's a starting place, and I think it's an improvement over the previous, which is all I'm really looking for here. Old, new, old, new. Actually, the new one, if I'm adding that twist, got to remember that the twist in the hand actually is driven by the twist in the arm here, as these the radius and ulna kind of go around each other here. So if I'm going to twist the hand a little bit, I do need to modify that. Again, I'm spending longer on the rework than I did on the original, which kind of makes it unfair to the original, but I feel like I'm learning something, so I don't mind that too much. Shape in here. This flesh is too fleshy. There we go. That's a little bit nicer. not too bad. It's better than it was before. I feel like I'm learning a little bit more. Maybe after 1,000 of these, I'll actually have learned something. Number 3. So again, with number 3, the better of the two drawings is already this one down here, where I was able to pull this thumb down a little bit, get a little bit of the length of the fingers more right, even though the fingers on this one are still way too long compared to the actual hand itself. The fingers should be about the same length as the palm, at least when I measure, or not the palm, the top of the hand. At least when I measure my own hand, that's the case. The palm is actually a little bit longer than the top of the hand. Come in here. I'm going to work on this smaller one since this is the one that is in the better place already. So trying to get this wedge shape in here. The whole hand in this case is kind of it's doing that, but it's tilted, and then so that can be captured kind of with this as it goes across. The palm is actually, from this position that we're looking at it, is actually visible for if the thumb wasn't in the way. This wedge shape of the thumb comes out here, and I'm going to keep with the length of the palm in the drawing itself, and I'm just going to fix the fingers, which means that the connection to the thumb from this drawing will be about there. I'm just going to rough in the thumb real quick. The top of the thumb is, as you can see in this drawing right here, where the planes kind of do that. So this is where my thumb is. We're not really seeing the top of the hand here. We do see this knuckle here, which is the knuckles of the first, or of the middle and index fingers. I'm going to pull the index finger up slightly just to stretch out this a little bit more. I always do that. I always make this fingers way too pointy. It's a little bit more of a better shape. I'm just going to turn off that for now. As I pulled that up, just don't remember what the pose looks like. So the pose had this finger coming down a bit from here. Which I think is a little bit more in line with the actual length of the palm that we're looking at here. This would all be in shadow as well, bottom of the hand. But I'm not too worried about that at the moment. We'll get there. The actual indication of these fingers give it a little bit of shape. We're not looking at the side of these fingers. We are actually looking at the bottom because the whole hand curls in towards this part of the thumb. If the hand is open like this, the fingers curl in towards there. This is something that I always need to remember when I'm drawing, and it's something that I think I've gotten wrong in all of these drawings, especially the first version of this one, where each of these fingers, if you looked at them, they would just curl straight down like a robot, instead of here where I got these individual lines with their own perspectives. So that's what we're looking at here as well, where I drew these the first time where they were all just kind of flat. This one I got it more coming around the way that it should, with these lines curling in to kind of play off that they'd wrap. But is that a better drawing than the previous one? I think so. I'm still definitely missing some of the anatomy work here. I need to put some more time into that. But it's good to know where my weaknesses are as I continue along with these. And this thumb is actually way too long. Just do that. Yeah, that looks okay. No, actually, now the thumb's too small. Maybe the thumb was fine before. Definitely gonna have to work on my a little cartoony, but that's fine. Yeah, I think I improved that one as well. This one, I think this drawing was, for the most part, fine. I can see that I definitely drew this as a big box, and that's not super accurate to, especially since I'm using my own hand as reference here. My hand shape is definitely more of that kind of shape. So I wasn't super accurate to that. So if I were to fix that, I'd have to come in here, add shape definition kind of like that. I think the thumb here was okay. Definitely doesn't do that. I used to have such confident lines. Now I don't. It's okay. I'll get them back. Now, I've always had a little bit of trouble from the inside of the palm, since we can't see where the fingers actually connect together, because it's hidden up by the webbing of the fingers. I tried to indicate that here in this drawing the first time. The issue that I'm seeing now with this one, though, is that because of how I did that, I made the pivot point. The pivot point should be back here to each of these fingers, which means, one, that this line I drew up here is definitely way too long. It should definitely be closer down like that, which worked out fine for a couple of these fingers. I think that this one is in the right spot, but this middle finger up here, I guess it would be more like that. But this is still up way too high. The other thing is I was trying to work with the perspective on this one, because this finger was actually kind of pushed forward slightly, and I can't get the 100% the pose here again, but remembering the fact that it was, remembering that these are not perfect cylinders, they're more square, kind of push that slightly further forward in perspective. A little bit more overlap on the finger here. Even come in here and add a bit of that. And one thing that I didn't necessarily do here, but that it still doesn't look like it's pushing itself forward into space. I'm just going to push it way more extreme. I'm going to get this finger way out in front here. There we go. Do the same thing with the pinky finger. Since in this pose the fingers were kind of consecutively getting a little bit more curled in. And remembering, of course, that as they curl in, they're curling in towards here. So I'm going to pull this pinky finger, and I'm going to have to actually modify this bit of the hand a bit to accommodate that. I'm going to pull the whole pinky in closer. It's not exactly the same pose, but definitely like that a bit more. Can feel it coming in again towards that direction. I'm going to do the same for the middle finger just to play with the pose a bit. There's only so much I can really do with a straight on pose like that, which means that for the index finger I can just fix the length. It was a bit long before. Again, I think I feel it in these two fingers a bit more. I'd need to make a couple more adjustments. I think this finger definitely flattened out a bit. I didn't add any of the shading, but like I said, the shading's kind of secondary to the drawing. If I can't get a good drawing, then no amount of shading is going to help it, unless the shading completely redoes the drawing, which I'm not really looking for. So I'm going to call that one done. I'm going to move on to the final drawing, which is the one that completely kicked my butt the first time. Drawing 5. And I don't even really know what to do with this one. So I definitely want that wedge shape. the hand is so malleable. Um, it's not, you can't just choose one shape. You can't be like, oh, I always use uh, this. As my hand, because the issue is that, for instance, in this pose, the bones that make up the hand here can be pulled in together and pushed down. So what we're actually looking at here is we're looking at a big arc. At least this is what I think is happening. And this is where I was having all the issues. So I've got that big arc. I've got the shape of the thumb coming down here and pushing out. That works. And that's the only part of the drawing I liked before as well. Now the issue is that even with the fingers out like this, with this scrunch up in here that's happening, I need to be looking at these fingers again with their individual perspectives that they've got coming out here, because they're each going in towards this scrunched area. They're each going in towards that thumb, which I think is why this was not working out the way I wanted it to before, because the way that this perspective was working meant that the fingers would have bent towards the opposite side of the hand, not towards the side of the hand that they're supposed to. So if this shape's coming out, and it's coming out straight from this position, this finger's actually ending up here with the knuckle with an angle like that. So this is the top of the finger here, meaning that when this comes down, we're looking at the same thing. And these are parallel. Then like that. It still doesn't look right. I definitely drew it too small, but the principle's there. So if I draw this out here, make it a little bit bigger, since it's more forward in perspective, come down, you get that full middle knuckle there. Again, down. That's not bad. Do the same thing with the middle finger, where that comes out. Again, seeing the full. It didn't really come out or come down quite like that, though. It came out more like this. But again, we're seeing that full. And then the comes down like that. Then this is coming out like that. We're seeing it come down to about. No, we're not seeing it like that. So it's coming more straight out here. So this is actually going to be out like that probably. And that's when we see this finger doing that. And then it comes down again, following that same perspective. And then the pinky comes more straight out like that. It'd be hidden behind there. Second one, and then the third one, just doing the same, down like that. Now, we haven't solved it entirely, but I think from here we could come in, we could add the fleshy bits to the inside of each of these fingers, which turns them into more of those more of those cylinders that I was trying to use the first time around, but was definitely not having any luck with. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've learned tonight, and I think I might have known it at some point in time in the past, but I've definitely lost it since, especially since stopping drawing as much a couple years back, is I need to remember the perspective on each of these knuckles as it comes out. Essentially, this whole drawing is just in shade. Need to remember these perspective as they come out, with them all curling back towards the thumb. Yeah, I think that's a better drawing than that. It's still not perfect. It still doesn't, obviously this and this aren't the same pose, but part of what I was having the issue with on this was getting that perspective drawing out. In fact, I'm just even going to go ahead and fix that real quick. I know I'm way longer on this recording than I intended. If anybody is watching somebody badly draw hands for almost an hour, thank you for watching. I'm going to be making more of these videos since I want to get better at making videos, and I think it might help motivate me in actually spending more time drawing, which I miss doing. So I think I'm going to call it here. I think that's a better hand than the one underneath that I even put a X over the first time. Doesn't perfectly match my original pose, but I still got those fingers in there. I got each of them in there with their own perspectives that more follow along with the curvature of the hand heading in towards the thumb. I think I learned a lot. Thank you for joining me. Goodbye.